So, you want to know everything there is to know about evil. Well, that's a big subject. That's a topic to cover. There is a certain amount that you can kind of start with. There's a lot of questions. People sit around wondering when they watch the news how people could be so horrible to do something that they've seen on a story. Whether it's the slaughter of a bunch of people over in another country, or even here at home. Maybe it's one of the recent shootings that keep happening. How can people do something like that? Well, it's a couple of things. Zinke is one of them. There are basically about 3 forms of evil that I've been able to kind of break it down into these little categories. It's much broader beyond that. There's a lot more to it, and that kind of rules out. And I'll say this from the beginning: that kind of rules out a lot of the emotional reactions that people have to situations where they get drunk or they lose it one night and kill somebody in a bar, something like that. Yeah, that's evil, but that's just basically human instinct. That's it's human emotion taking control over a person that might not have otherwise done something like that. That's not necessarily evil. Well, there's maybe a touch of it. It could kind of branch out from one of the others. But the 3 basic types of evil, let's start with mental. Mental illness. And it's kind of hard to put that in the category of evil, because somebody who's mental does not necessarily think they're being evil. A lot of times they know full on they're being evil and they enjoy it. They like it. So it could be a couple of different things there. But either way, if somebody didn't have the mental problems they had, they might not go doing the horrible atrocities that they've committed at times. And that includes everything from government agencies and leadership who somehow get the masses of people behind them in some of these evil acts, and thinking it's the right thing to do. Well, that's horrible. Certainly horrible. It doesn't mean everybody that was supportive of that was evil or mental, for that matter. They might not have had the same mental abilities. They were just caught up in it. That's not really an excuse, but it starts with somebody, with one person. And usually, you look back over some of the tyrants in history, and you can probably categorize them in one form of mental illness or another. And it's usually sociopathic, psychopathic behaviors. That's not necessarily normal human behavior. I don't feel that it is. I think it can be construed as that, but I don't think it is. People that have a mental problem, a mental illness, think that what they're doing is right for some reason or another. And this is kind of weird, because a lot of those people can be picked out of certain political ideologies or religious ideologies as well. And that's scary, because nobody wants to confront that. Nobody wants to look at that head on and say, wow, it looks like 99% of all of the mass shootings in the U.S. have been perpetrated by people who are supportive of a particular political ideology. And none of those have been committed by anybody who has been a member of the NRA. Even though they get blamed for every mass shooting. Which is another weird thing, because those same people, maybe not the ones committing the crimes, but the people that are of that same political ideology can blame the other side for the stuff that their side is doing. So you can be of the same mental illness because you affiliate yourself to that way of thinking. That doesn't mean you're going to go out and commit crimes. Doesn't even mean you support the crimes that others are committing, but there's a certain defensive mechanism happening there. And, that's something that needs to be looked at. But nobody really wants to look at that head on and say, hey, these people that tend to believe these certain ways, well, this isn't healthy. It's not normal. In fact, none of the ends that they want to reach really make any sense, either for society or individuals. I don't want to get into the weeds on that because it's ugly and most people don't like talking about it. But that's one of the main problems is people don't want to confront the actual source of the problems. That could even go as far as supporting illegal immigration. You got to have laws. You got to have security in your country, or you're going to have problems. I mean, there's people that will drag a child underwater just to get underneath some barbed wire fence to get into this country, and they'll drag a child that's not even theirs. Basically, these are kidnapped children that people are stealing and trying to get into our country illegally. Now, I don't know if that's somebody you want as a neighbor. I don't. It's not to say they're all doing that. There's a lot of people that come here out of desperation, and they're misguided by certain people in our government who allow them to think that that could be an easy way in to escape their problems at home. For those people, there's a sympathy factor, but it's still not the right way. It's still not how you do it, because even then you can be bringing disease into this country. You're not being medically vetted. In fact, the recent measles outbreaks have largely been traced back to people that are entering the country illegally and bringing disease with them. And they are infecting vaccinated people. The vaccines are very limited in effectiveness. It's like putting a fingertip bandage on a chainsaw wound. They work to a certain extent. They can be effective. I wish they were 100% effective. I wish I could get that vaccine, and I've had it, but I wish I could get it and be 100% positive I'll never catch a disease. But that's just not the case. That's not the reality. So, these are the problems that you bring in with a certain type of ideology. And I'm sorry, but that's a mental illness. If you think it's okay to just open the gates and let everything in, which is primarily the stuff that nobody else wants, the people that are leaving these countries, they're not necessarily all bad people, but the drugs that are being made and distributed and sold throughout the U.S. are not being made necessarily in Iowa or Montana. They're bringing them across the border. You got bad people bringing bad stuff here. Now they're mixed in with people that just want to come here and find a good home. That's true. But the fact is, if you don't have a system in place, you're willing to throw that system out. Well, you throw out all your security as well. And most of you know that. That's I'm just talking to the bleachers right now. But mental illness. That's a main problem with evil. That is one of the main problems. The other one is cultural. Now, cultural evil is a way that a lot of people grow up in an environment where there is a real poor understanding of human value. You don't value the human life or the human experience. There's people that will grow up basically unloved, uncared for, and not learning morals and values or having any reason for those. They don't have a reason to imply those in their lives. So they don't. To them, kidnapping tourists and children and women and selling them into sex slavery it's just the same thing as selling a litter of puppies on the street corner to them. It's no different. They don't differentiate it because they don't value it. They haven't been taught that. They haven't learned it. It's not something that they inherently instilled in themselves. A lot of people, I think, could grow up in the same circumstance and know right from wrong and know good from evil and not do those things. But a lot of people don't. So I'm not sure if it's a human nature aspect. I don't think it is. I think it's how you're raised and what you learn as you grow up. And a lot of people don't realize, but there are more human slaves today on Earth than there have been throughout any point in recorded history. I've heard anywhere between 2 and 4 million people are enslaved. Man, that's in various forms of slavery, whether it's to work, be a laborer, unpaid, you're under someone else's control, threat of death if you try to escape, to sex slavery. That's big. It's going on. It happens everywhere from parts of Eastern Europe and even some small areas of Western Europe where it can originate but doesn't really tend to linger long because those people have to move around because it's a lot more likely to get caught in some of the more advanced areas. But Middle East, Saudi Arabia, other countries in the Middle East, throughout Asia, There are parts of Asia where, in slavery, in Africa, there are slaves more now than there have been at any point in history. And nobody really wants to talk about that. It's not a thing that gets addressed a lot. Now, every now and then you'll see a raid that broke up a child sex slave ring or something, saved a bunch of kids. That's great. It doesn't happen often enough. I don't know why. But how can these people be like that? Well, you know, some of them are suffering from the mental illness, and some of them are just, that's the culture. That's what life is where they're from. That's how they do it. And that's unfortunate. Are you ever going to fight that evil? Are you ever going to be able to eliminate evil like that? Well, you probably could. There's, from the mental side, I don't know. I mean, you can't, a lot of it, it's not illegal to have mental problems that make you think bizarre, sick stuff. It's when you act on it. And unfortunately, when you act on it, the crime's already been done. So that the mental, combating the mental problems is a whole lot harder. It's something that maybe can be identified and acted upon, maybe observed and closely controlled. That's getting pretty dark and sinister. You know, it's really infringing on rights, but, you know, what are you going to do? And then there's, how do you combat the people that are just thinking this is normal? There's a cat fight every 30 minutes in my house. So how do you combat the cultural evil? The people that just behave this way because they think it's normal behavior. They know it's illegal. They know they're breaking the laws. They don't really get why they're laws, probably. Maybe they do. Maybe they know it's wrong, but they don't care. They just don't have the ability to care about what they're doing. They don't care that they hurt people. You know, somebody's no use to them. They'll put a bullet in their head and throw them over a boat. To them, it's just as easy as taking out the trash. It's weird, but this can be separate from the mental problem. Maybe not entirely. I mean, I do think maybe that is a bit of a mental issue, but it might be more of a learned mental issue than a developmental one. So that's two forms of evil. And you're never going to be able to wipe them out. You could wipe them out. Say you get rid of every one of those bad people today. You eliminate all human slavery, all sex trafficking, all of it. Then what? Well, a generation goes by and you got it all starting over again. You got the same thing right back where you started. I mean, it's going to take time to build and grow again, but do you keep control of that? I don't know. I'm not sure you can. Maybe. It might be possible sometime in the future to control all that and make sure it doesn't happen, stop it before it gets very far. But it's going to be an ongoing battle for the rest of humanity, because there are always going to be people who feel like that's just something you can do to make money. That's a way of life. There are always going to be people with mental illnesses who really hate the other side or someone who disagrees with them so much that they want to shoot them. There's always going to be that. And you just can't eliminate everybody like that, because you don't always know who they are. So it's just it's here to stay. I feel bad, but I think it's here to stay. The third type of evil is, and I don't know that it's necessarily evil, but it leads to evil, but it's complacency. It's willing to turn a blind eye to the problems. It's accepting poor values and poor morals because you're afraid of being labeled something. You're afraid to be called names and labels by other people if you don't agree with their ideologies. It perpetuates a type of evil. Say you don't really agree with something, but you don't want to be called one of their labels that they like to throw around. So you go along with it. You agree with it, and you virtue signal and show, hey, look, I agree with these people, so I'm not bad, and I'm not one of these things they call other people. So that, that's really getting into an ideological type of evil. And that's unfortunate, because that's not the way it works. That's not the way it should work. That's the way it's always been, though. If you don't agree with certain people, the other group will bash you down. They will beat those people out of existence. And when you get to the point where you're not standing your ground and supporting what you believe in, but you're complying with all of their ideology just so you won't be called something, so that your life can go on fairly untouched, well, you're succumbing to evil. You're buying into a real problem that's just going to grow and get out of control. So, you know, you got to decide. Do you stand your ground and stand up for what you believe in? Do you stand on your principles, or do you cave in so you won't be called something stupid? I don't care what you call me. I don't care what idiot loser out there wants to call me a racist or a bigot or a Nazi or any of these things, because I'm not. And 99.9% of all people who are called these things are not that either. There are tons of reasons not to like something. But the second you don't like it, there's only one reason from their point of view. And they know that's not true. But they can label you and they know it's going to work. It's just a tactic. That's all it is. You know, you don't like something because it was poorly made. Like a TV show or a movie. It was poorly made. It was just not good. But it happened to have somebody from a certain race or a certain sexuality or a certain religious background or something like that. Well, that's the reason you didn't like it. You know, people are going on about Captain Marvel. Oh, these guys don't like it because they don't want to see a woman superhero. That's the dumbest thing. That's the dumbest no-win argument they can make. And they still keep making it. I'm sorry, but, you know, everybody out there on the planet liked Wonder Woman. That was an awesome movie. Captain Marvel was unimpressive. She was just a bland character. I'm sorry, but Brie Larson is not a great actress. She did not sell the role. That movie could have been great if you had got the right person for the part and you had developed that story a little bit further instead of just trying to shoehorn it into an already existing series to fit the ending. That's all that was about. And that's why they fought so hard and lied on Rotten Tomatoes and every other vlog you could get on. And anybody that argued or objected to it was getting banned on Facebook or Twitter or any of these other accounts because they were a bigot and didn't like women. I'm sorry, but you can't win that argument. That's the most ridiculous argument. But they keep trying, and they're losing. And anybody that believes that, really, well, I'm sorry, but you're in the mental illness category. It's just where you're at. There's a lot of women characters in the Marvel movies. People liked all of them. Same with Star Wars. People don't like Rey. Well, she's a bad character. Poorly written, poorly developed. There's nothing there to like. I'm sorry. She's a good actress. There's nothing wrong with her as a person. But the way they've presented her in the movies was a shambles. You know, sorry, but we grew up with Princess Leia as one of our heroes. So you can take that argument and shove it because nobody's buying it. That's the kind of thing, that's just an entertainment aspect of how they operate, how they function. Don't fall for it. Stand your ground, be yourself. At least that's one evil you can fight, and you have to on a daily basis. Stand your ground. Believe in what you want to believe and stand up for it. But don't fall for these petty, ridiculous arguments. You're not that. Whatever they're going to call you, you're not it. And you know it. And let the world know it. They're not really gaining any traction. There's a few people that follow along with the nonsense, but not many. So it's not really worth talking about. But those are the three types of evil. That's what's on my mind today. That's what I wanted to talk about. Because evil is something that we got to face out there in the world every day. And, you know, when you go out there, especially when you're in a field like supernatural investigation, you're out there looking for UFOs or aliens or ghosts, you're going to come up against a lot of people calling you names and just don't believe in what you want to believe in. And that's fine. Those people are welcome to do that. But they have a right to their opinion. So do I. So it's a bit of a battle. It can be a fight. Every time you go out to do something you want to do, there are going to be people pushing back. It's like, well, you can't just keep your mouth shut and let me do my thing. No, unfortunately. So you got to just learn to ignore those people. If you have to address them, you got to know how to address them. But stand your ground. Stand up for your principles. It's the only thing you can do. Anyway, this is Star Trek 47. I think I'm going to go get ready for a serious ghost hunt today. So we'll touch base on that another time. Also, next week we are heading to Boston, Massachusetts, and we'll be doing some ghost investigating there as well. So stay tuned for upcoming shows. Every now and then I like to talk about something, but every now and then I like to get out there and do it.